I think we're going. There we are.
Here we are. Hey guys.
Wow.
How's everybody doing? I've been reading all the comments that are coming through the little chat, and it's pretty amazing how there is so many people from all over the world just joining together right now. It's pretty incredible. Can you guys hear us okay? I hope you can. We've been trying out these new lav mics, as you can see on our chest. That's kind of what took us a couple minutes to like get them all, you know, synced up because they were taking a little bit of time. But hopefully the sound is good.
Hopefully it's good.
It's really cool to be able to do a themed live stream with you guys today, especially because we have this studio behind us. Because look, for a live stream that's yoga themed, it's perfect because I'm going to show you guys. Mark is going to use his little keypad there.
Juliana's going to go over there and we are going to go bang.
And I'm on a mat, so I can talk to you guys and show you any sort of modifications, questions, whatever you have about yoga or yoga postures. We can actually demonstrate things to you guys and really allow you to understand what we talk about. But I'm going to go over there right now.
So, right?
Yeah, that's what we thought. We're like, you know, we want to do, we want to start testing out these live streams and kind of in a podcast type of way, because I think it'll allow us to give the opportunity to connect with everybody in a deeper way and also answer so many of your questions, because your questions are all great and we see so many comments about so many different topics and ideas, but it's so hard to, you know, respond to everything online. So this gives us an opportunity to, you know, help you guys answer any kind of concerns you have, but also chat a bit about our own views and topics.
And I think what's really cool is that it gives us a moment when we do our regular live streams. We get so many topics from so many different areas that it becomes really difficult to in on one thing and give as much value to it as possible. So this one, for us, this is yoga. We decided we'd start with the most obvious, but we're really excited to try other things as this goes. So let us know in the comments of this video, in the comments on the side, what you'd love to see other episodes of what we're sort of tentatively calling the Boho Frequency.
Yeah, it's just like a little title for live streams that we're going to be doing to connect with you guys. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see how long we'll do it for. We're not really committing to anything, but this is a good little
just see how you guys like it. And I mean, hey, it's a hell of a project because we've got this whole new studio space set up.
Yeah, and Black Magic
gave us the switcher, the ATEM Mini.
This is what allows us to kind of go from cameras that you guys see, which makes it really cool.
So we've kind of teamed up with them to bring this whole live component of our business to life. We'll put links down below. And yeah, it's actually been amazing because we've done 2 classes on the mat already for Patreon, which went really well. 2 live classes, an hour and a half hour. A couple technical issues like today, but we're gonna get through it. We're gonna learn.
And we're planning to do one on Saturday as well, probably a little bit gentle class. So if you guys are into Boho Beautiful, you can find all different exclusive classes, and it's pay what you can. So you can pay $1 and enjoy.
And a lot of people are asking, we're going to keep Patreon, pay what you can for the life of the Patreon. We're going to replace it with the app like we talked about last time. We won't get into that again because we talked about it a lot, but it's still pay what you can. So if you can only pay $1, that's totally fine. And it's just amazing to have you.
So let's talk about yoga.
Yeah.
So one of the things that...
Actually, before we talk about yoga, the comments, I'm going to sort of monitor them on the side. But we're going to stop sort of things that we're talking about and come to the comments, and then we're going to come back to different topics that people have been asking a lot of questions about. So we're not ignoring you guys, and we see them going off, and it's so incredible to see it. I mean, all of this.
So when you see us, like, kind of look above the camera,
and we're like,
not just zoning out.
So you know what? Let's just fire off 3 quick questions, because people. I saw 4 questions already about yoga mats.
Yeah.
Right? So from Einison.
How to choose the best yoga mat. I understand one of the biggest problems with yoga mats, and that's something that we personally also struggled, is the grippiness of yoga mats. You can buy, you can buy the cheap $10 ones and you'll be slip and sliding on it.
But the other thing is actually the eco side of it, because we try to keep our mind on the toxicity. Alpine wood, is that what it was? I'm not doing justice to it.
Cedar, I can't remember. But I highly recommend you guys invest in a good yoga mat. I know some of them can be like $120, but when you spend that extra bit of money on a good quality mat, that mat should last you for years. right? So in a way, it's worth it.
Newt Zeppelin asked, how long have you been vegan? This is the last question before we go. And I wanted to answer this because yesterday we actually did our first podcast with another podcast called Yoga is Vegan.
Yeah.
So we spent all day talking, well, not all day, 2 hours or whatever it was, talking about our vegan journey.
Yeah. We've been vegan for 10 years now.
It's almost 10
years.
So if you check out Yoga is Vegan in about 2 weeks, we'll probably put something on our socials. It's our first podcast being hosted by somebody else.
Exactly.
It's a lot of fun.
All right, so let's talk about a couple of things that we wanted to discuss with you guys today about yoga. One of the most common questions that we get are questions, but also excuses, I want to say, or comments about people's personal practice. This idea that people feel like they're not good at yoga, or that they're not flexible enough to do yoga.
Or being intimidated to start on a yoga journey, or getting frustrated when you begin to practice yoga because of this, I don't know, it's like this energy that we have in our society, in our culture, that everything is about competitiveness, even if it's with yourself, and where you land on a scale of terrible to good.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't help, I mean, with social media out there, right? You see so many beautiful photos of people doing these crazy poses of yoga and these, outfits, and
we contribute to that.
We contribute to that too. Like we post,
it's a beautiful art.
Photos, yeah.
Like to that degree. But the key to all of this, and we could dive into it from here maybe, is there is no such thing as good at yoga.
No, and there is no such thing as being not flexible enough to do yoga, because once you step on the mat and practice and start to incorporate yoga into your life, that is your journey to gaining flexibility. So no matter where you are, even if you're like can't even touch your toes, like that's completely fine. Like so many of us, almost every one of us has started at that point, at one point in our lives, right? And so we work your way through it. So it's never too late to begin to do yoga. You just have to be very mindful of yourself and your body, and really use that experience on the mat with regards to connection, because that's what yoga is really about. Sorry, I can't talk. That's what yoga is really about. It's this interconnection between your body and your mind and your breath and the energy within you. And that's where you feel that sense of bliss and grounding. It's not just from doing the crazy poses and you feeling your muscle aches, but it's also for having that time to reconnect with yourself. And that's the most beautiful thing about yoga.
It's a journey. I mean, it's a process. It's not like playing a game of tennis or golf or something like that, because it's a process and it's an experience.
Yeah.
So you go and you have this experience with yourself, and wherever you are, maybe you're sore or lower energy that day, or maybe you're first time on your mat, or maybe you're incredibly flexible and you spent 10,000 hours practicing yoga your whole life. All of that, as long as you are practicing the process of connecting inward, of finding that energy inside yourself, and bringing it to a deeper grounding, a deeper balance, and exploring. It's all about exploring not just your physical body and exploring, but feeling and being intuitive and taking a moment to just be. I mean, in the essence, yoga it's literally, from the traditional sense, the whole process of asanas, which is the poses, is actually just to get you ready for meditation. So yoga, as we know in the West, that is nothing, actually, not nothing, but it is nothing, it is only a slight sliver, one of the limbs of yoga. There's 7 limbs of yoga, eight limbs of yoga in the traditional sense, and they're all just to prepare you for deep meditation. It's just to loosen your body. And so the Western idea and the industry of yoga and all these things has taken that and built a whole industry around it and built a whole practice, and it's wonderful. There's so much benefit that's come from that. Yeah. And they've made it all about the poses. But the poses, they're just to loosen yourself up.
Yeah, and I saw a question pop up here about, can yoga help you achieve weight loss? Of course. And I mean, you see so many videos that we post, you see so many videos out there in general on the digital world and in the physical studio space where a practice is focused on weight loss, or practice is focused on toning certain areas of your body. that comes with it, right? So when you're practicing yoga, and depending on the practice itself, of course, you can do a more gentler restorative practice, which is not going to really help you with the goal of weight loss, but it will give you other benefits of that. But then there's other ways that you can get on your mat and do more of a yoga workouts, style of practice, or even like Ashtanga yoga, anything that challenges your body, it engages your muscles, it strengthens your muscles. All of that will contribute to a weight loss goal. So it's not to say that it's wrong to have a goal to get fit and healthy through yoga or flexible. I think all of it it's in this beautiful like a package, right? And what we're trying to say is that nobody is not good enough to start on their journey to get into this experience, which will give you the benefits of weight loss and connection with your body and health and getting more blood flowing through your body. Like, there's so many benefits through yoga. I don't think we need to go through them right now on this talk, but I think the message that we're trying to really bring across to everybody is that it doesn't matter if you're 12 years old or if you're 60 years old. Like,
or 80 or 90 or
it's
whatever.
never too late to just step on your mat and listen to your body and do what feels best to your body. And when you do a yoga class online, some postures might be way too difficult or out of range for you, and that's okay. And it's important to realize that and be like, you know what? I'm going to be patient with my body, and I'm going to do a modified version, or maybe I'm even going to skip this particular pose, but I'm still going to stay on my mat, and I'm going to get into a child's pose, and I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to connect to myself. So that is a really important aspect for all of us to always remember.
And it's also important to remember if you're frustrated, because a lot of people try it, and after one class, they're like, not for me. And so I think but there is that level of frustration because your body isn't used to slowing down. Your mind isn't used to taking time for yourself, because we live in this culture where it's just like everything's go, go, go. And then when you take a minute and you have to sit in Shavasana, and all of a sudden at the end of a class, you're like, what the hell am I doing? But that's actually one of the most important poses of the whole practice, because it's teaching you this patience and this relationship and this intuitive way to examine how you feel afterwards versus how you felt before.
Exactly. And there's also something really important that we really want to bring forward to all of you guys, is the idea of when you're doing yoga or doing a yoga pose, there's a difference between tension and compression. And what I mean by that is, let's just say that you're trying to achieve a dragonfly pose, right? Like in yin yoga, where you open up your legs.
No one knows what a dragonfly
Maybe I'll go out
pose is.
on the mat and
Yes,
show.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
There she
So,
goes.
dragonfly in yin yoga is when you just sit open like this with your legs out, and then you start to come forward, right? So when we're talking about tension or versus compression, so tension is a sensation that you feel in your muscles where you're feeling that stretch, right? So you're like, oh, this kind of hurts, but I can kind of sit here and wait for it. But compression is actually when your bone hits bone, and that is a skeletal anatomical structure of your own body, which says that maybe this is as far as your hips will ever open because of the way your hips are shaped. So if you feel like there's like this bone-on-bone sensation happening, if you continue to push through it further and further and further, you're only going to cause injury to yourself. So it's a really important aspect to think about when you're doing this. And Mark, come here. We were talking about it today, about the shoulders, remember? Just to show people another example.
Well, I think actually a really good example is the downward dog, because I think that at my first yoga training in India, compression and tension was such an important aspect for people to learn, because everyone thinks that like they see people doing crazy poses and they're like, and they don't understand why they can't get there. And even if they work on it for a year or two, they get really frustrated because they don't understand why their muscles aren't releasing. But that's the myth, is that some people just aren't built for the splits. And some people aren't built to put their heels down in downward dog.
And what we mean by built is this tension versus compression. It's, when you're developing as a child, especially when you're newborn, they say the way our bones develop in like a spiral way. So you'll notice some people naturally can like have a natural opening within their feet, and some can just come halfway. And that literally is just the way their bones have been developed.
But it develops over time. So someone like Juliana, who spent endless hours being a rhythmic gymnast.
Yeah.
And and actually like just working on her flexibility through her developing years from like 8 years old on, or even earlier, that your bones develop with that kind of encouragement, so that when later in life she's much more flexible than someone who didn't start bending to touch their toes until they were 20.
And if I didn't start at that age, maybe I would have been completely different in my flexibility.
I honestly, I think you would have been completely different. So what I was going to say, I was just checking that we were on the camera, is for instance, in a downward dog, you have compression that can happen that holds. So when I go into a downward dog and I land like this, there's actually, there's no more way for my foot to come closer, because it's just bone on bone, it's compression. And so it doesn't matter how flexible I get in my hamstrings, unless I cheat a little bit to get my ankles down, or not my ankles, my heel, it's literally, it's just never gonna happen. It doesn't matter how many hours I spend in downward dog. Mm-hmm. It's that compression. So I think that goes to the thing about being good at yoga. It's crazy how many times, like, my friends or people that don't really do yoga, like, they know what we do and they're like, oh, do you do yoga a lot? I'm like, yeah, every day. And they're like, you must be good. And I'm like, yeah, I hear that all the time, but there's no such thing as good. It's like, sure, I'm good.
I think you're good to your own level, but like, I mean, there's crazy yogis out there that are bending in half and doing crazy headstands.
But that's no better than...
yeah, exactly. That's not to say they are better yogis than anyone that is doing something a little bit more basic, because it's all about just what you're feeling on the mat at that time and the health benefits you're getting from the posture.
Because you're always exactly where you need to be. And I'm going to be over here.
Well, I'll come over there too, because I want to answer some questions.
There we go.
I hope this makes sense to you guys. I think it's just important to talk about it, because injury in yoga is also something we have to be aware of. And when we're seeing these really impressive postures and we feel like we want to start getting them, it's important to understand your own body. And it's important to notice when you're feeling that sensation of tension versus compression.
Someone asked, just to go to a question,
Let's do
Ruth
some
asks,
yeah.
because we gave a demonstration, she said, what modifications do you suggest for downward dog? My partner finds that his biggest hesitation to practice.
Well, bending your knees,
100%.
for sure. I'll go show you guys.
Oh my God, we're going back over there.
So downward facing dog, especially for anybody that's a beginner, one of the first things that you want to do is bend your knees to help with any tension in the hamstrings. So let's say my hamstrings are tight. You press in, so you might just want to stand right here, right? And then over time, you're going to extend your knees as you're getting a little more flexibility, and you're going to go to your own level. But just starting like this, you're still getting a nice stretch in the upper body. You're still pressing into your hands. Your shoulders are down. So you're getting all the benefits of a downward facing dog, but by keeping the knees bent, you're allowing yourself to have that balance to hold your body there. I'm going to go over there.
So I am going to answer a really important question that I saw from Claudia Cylon. And she said, how do you know if this is the cause or if you just need more practice? And it's a sensation. The bone-on-bone compression, it feels dull, and it feels like...
It kind of hits like you've hit a boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah? Like a bone on bone.
And the tension feels like a stretch, like if you're stretching. And you have to be very intuitive. One of the ways that at the school that I went to, they first explored this was they made you put your hands above and then had somebody pull back. Why don't you pull back, Juliana? And when you pull back, eventually you feel right down in this area right there. And right there, you just feel dullness. It no longer feels like it has any more where to move. And it kind of doesn't necessarily hurt, but a throb.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also remember that compression is not a bad thing. It's not bad that if you got to a point of compression, it's just understanding that that is your limit and you don't want to go past it. Because if once you feel that sensation of bone hitting on bone, you don't want to hurt yourself or feel pain. And if you start to feel pain, that's your body letting you know, like, hey, I can't go any further. And just to share you guys a personal story as we close off this particular topic, and we'll take some more questions, but as Mark said, like, I used to be a rhythmic gymnast. I started at a very young age, and in rhythmic gymnastics, like the flexibility, the bending is very extreme. And in my anatomical construction of my body, my spine just wasn't able to bend in the way that other gymnasts were, but I kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it for like 8 years. I kept pushing it where my vertebrae, my L4 and L5, kept hitting and hitting and hitting each other. And after years and years of this compression, bone on bone, little tiny bits of my vertebrae completely broke off. So I had 5 stress fractures, little tiny hairline ones, but it was from the years of bone on bone compression. And it is something that I've healed from in a way. I mean, I will never heal from it. I have osteoarthritis in my back and I will live with it for the rest of my life because of this 8 years of compression that I've put on my spine. But that's just an example of what happens when anatomically your body isn't capable of doing it, but you're pushing and pushing and pushing through that, and then obviously the result is an injury or arthritis or something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. And I'm okay. I'm healthy. Yoga and Pilates is keeping my body.
Well, that's how you found yoga.
Yes, that is how I found yoga, is to help heal my back. But I wanted to share that example with you guys, is that I have been through it and I know how it feels. And so it's important for us to send that message to everybody that's practicing yoga, to understand the idea of listening to your body. We always say, listen, listen, listen to your body. Your body will communicate with you when you've hit that point of compression.
My mic, I lost my mic.
Oh,
Sorry
no.
if I screwed up the sound for her story there, as I'm pulling it out of my shirt. Oh, wow. I need a clip for this bad boy, eh?
Yeah, you do.
But speaking of that moment in your life, so you found out that you had a drastic injury. It was extremely painful for you. Mm-hmm. You were how old?
When I found out my injury?
Yeah, when it started to...
When I started going to the doctors and getting the x-rays, I was 15 years old.
And
at 16 years old, I had MRIs, CT scans, everything. They told me, this was like the biggest moment in my life, that my 16-year-old spine was almost the same of a 60-year-old woman's spine. So it was the equivalent of that.
And give some context. What were you doing in your life at that point?
Well, I was training every day. I went to a special school, high school in Vancouver, where I went to school till about 11 in the morning. So I only did that, like the mandatory courses, and then I would train for about 7 hours a day. And
for what? I'm trying to
rhythmic gymnastics.
For
what do you mean?
Well, she was training on the Canadian team and representing Canada.
Yes, I was national champion for a few years for Canada.
But what I think is really interesting about this, I'm sorry, because I think what's amazing to talk about is that you had immigrated to Canada with your family, and the Canadian government was paying you to be on the team. And there was this really interesting thing that I think there's probably parents out there who might end up being in similar situations, where actually, because you had immigrated to Canada, your dad was a doctor in the Ukraine, mm-hmm. and then he couldn't be a doctor in Canada until he passed a certain amount of training here.
Yeah, so my parents, both my dad and my mom, my mom was a teacher, my dad was a doctor, and my mom washed dishes for a few years. Like,
matter of fact.
We were very, very poor, and because of my gymnastics career at that point, when I was like 14, the government put me as what they call a carded athlete in Canada, meaning that the Gymnastics Federation pays me monthly amount of money to train and to compete and represent Canada internationally. And so that money, I think it was $3,000 a month that I received. It was technically the money that my parents were also using to survive. So we were kind of paying for my family, and which was actually one of the reasons why it was so difficult for me to quit. When I started at 16, my pain got so bad with this compression that I was causing to my body. I was on pharmaceutical painkillers. It was very, very extreme, but I had to get through it, and I couldn't quit because I had to support my family.
But what was crazy is that your family wanted you to quit.
Yeah.
And it was actually, normally you'd think it might be the family that's surviving off that money, but it was the Gymnastics Association that was trying to stop you from quitting. Wasn't that how it worked?
Yeah, well, they were not happy with me wanting to leave. That's for sure. So
it's one of those weird things about like these sports associations pushing people past their limits.
Yeah, it was more like the human aspect, the pain that I was going through was put secondary to the winning the medals, representing Canada, top athlete for them. That came as priority, and so that's why I had to keep pushing through it for a couple more years, and I really think that's what caused a lot more damage to my back. By the time I retired, as we call it in athletics, I was a mess. Like, I was in so much pain. I was really injured, and recover, and I had to heal my body, and that's kind of how I found yoga and Pilates. I didn't find yoga through a spiritual path. I found it through just the physical aspect of what do I have to do to bring myself back to being able to sleep at night and not feel pain, to be able to walk and not feel pain, because I was at that point and I was like 18 years old, like couldn't walk without pain. So yoga saved my life in that way, and it's the way the journey has taken me to be able to be here today and to talk to everybody and to talk about like the experience, my own pain and my own journey, and to, you know, show you guys that if you're out there and you do feel pain and you have injuries and physical limitations, through determination and focus and listening to your body and being gentle with yourself, you will be able to heal. Because I've healed, I mean, I full back 5 multiple stress fractures in my lower back. I healed them through yoga. So
and that's important, because one of the things that yoga is about learning compassion for your own body and for yourself. So the first things that you start to, those connections that start to happen, even if you do, for whatever reason you start, all of a sudden you start understanding how to listen and give what is necessary. And what I think is so magical about yoga, and what is never expected, or at least in both of our cases, was once we started to listen and we started to learn compassion for ourselves, we were able to then make a connection, not just in our relationship to our body, but then carry that compassion over to our relationship with the world. And it changes the way you look at the world. Something as simple as stretching on a mat can lead you down this path. And if you just keep opening a door and stepping through, and there's another door, and you keep opening through that, and all of a sudden, you've walked through enough doors that the way you look at the world can change. Not just, and the way you look at yourself in the world. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, life just, it goes through a shift. And it's from something as simple as yoga, usually meditation as well. We do a lot of meditation too after our yoga practices. But it's that connection, and it's magic.
Yeah,
like, yoga is magic.
This goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of our stream about the idea of finding this connection on your mat, no matter whether you believe you're good at yoga or you're not good at yoga, because there's no such thing. Should we do some questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's do some questions.
You guys are amazing. How do we pick?
I don't know. How many times a day do you practice? From Michelle Hurton.
We do once a day. We do our own practice in the mornings, because I find that if we leave it for later, the day just gets away from us.
Our best times, though, in life are when we do a shorter practice in the morning, get on with our day, and then have a night practice. We did that a lot when we lived in Costa Rica. We've done that a little bit here, but we've just been so busy putting out all the YouTube videos, and now for the last little while setting this whole studio up, that like we usually work till around midnight, so we never get that extra practice. And then we get up at 6 or 7 and we do it all again. But it's just important that no matter what we're going through, sometimes when we're traveling, sometimes when we're living in the van, sometimes when we're here at home, is that we find at least one, even if it's 10 minutes, just to meditate even, but just to have that moment to reconnect and remember that we're on a journey, but it's just about being. It's just about, like, I don't know, that just remembering that relationship with yourself and finding that groundedness to carry on day to day. And the more you do it, the more you need it. And then also, the more you don't do it, the more you drift away. So it's important to always, even when you don't feel like it, usually when I don't feel like it, and then I do it, I'm like, God damn, I'm happy I did that. Yeah. Right? Like,
yeah. And it's crazy to see Mark too, because you know, when I started upon my yoga journey and I was teaching, and Mark at that time before your injury.
Oh, yeah.
He was not into yoga. He was like the hockey player that was like...
I literally never stretched a day in my life.
Never. You couldn't touch his toes. And
oh, yeah.
It was because...
I played aggressive hockey like very like, you know, AAA, rep hockey, all that stuff. Even when I was an adult, I like took a few years off and then came back and just started playing it 4 times a week again. But like the idea of stretching, like they don't teach you how to stretch in hockey. Like they don't teach you any benefit from it. They're like, do a little warm up, like maybe at the start. And then eventually I got injured. And that could have maybe been avoided through stretching, but it was actually through that injury. It was a snowboard injury, which I never stretched for snowboarding either, before or after at all. I tore my ACL, and Juliana helped me.
You came to my hot yoga classes at that time.
Yeah.
I brought him in there. I used to teach hot yoga classes when I used to teach in studios. And I was like, look, just come. It'll be a heated room. It'll
That's so
help
funny.
your muscles relax. And I remember he came and he was like in the back of the room.
Only back corner.
And I was like teaching in my head. I'm like, oh, he probably is so annoyed right now. Because at that point in Mark's life, like you were not into yoga.
No, it wasn't my thing.
Yeah. But you went through this journey
And
then
it
look at where
started.
you are now. And like now Mark is on the mat every day and your flexibility has...
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't call myself a flexible person, but I would say that my body is flexible
But I
for
think
my
it's
body.
also a great inspiration for any guys out there, men that think that, you know, yoga is a woman thing.
Oh
or
my
that
God,
they're
yeah.
not good at yoga or they're just into sports and they won't even try it. I think
There's-
speak to that.
There's such a stigma about men in yoga. And it's crazy when you go into yoga studios, it's like 10, 15% men and like 80, 90% women. And as a man, if I mention it to other men, nobody really gets it because there is this stigma around it. So they kind of like, what? You do what? Like, my wife does that. But the thing is, like, it has nothing to do with gender, and it has everything to do with our soul.
Actually, traditionally, when yoga started, it was only for men in India. It was for, like, women did not do yoga.
Which is crazy. And then the Westernization of it comes through, and they build the industry and all this stuff, and they really position it in a way for women. And I think that that's robbing men of a chance that I think is really important in our culture, because there's so much like machismo, and there's so much like manhood, and you have to drink beer, and you have to, you know, love sports, and you have to play, you know, all the things that, you know, quote unquote men do. And through those things, there's never that chance to just like sit and to build a relationship with yourself, because you're actually only building relationships with all these activities and other men doing those activities. And so I think it's a shame that more men aren't encouraged to partake in yoga, because it's been the most valuable thing in my life. It hasn't made me less manly. Maybe to some men would say that, but it's made me more human. And I think that's so important. And to be able to do it with you and with other women, and there's other men that I've met along my journey that I'll do yoga with, and there's such a bonding experience to realize that, like, it's vulnerable, because culturally, I don't know, it's not really normal. So like the first time that Juliana ever put me in a happy baby, I was like, I ain't doing what?
That's such a vulnerable posture.
Yeah, right? Like, and you're just like, but then you realize, like, there's not that much wrong with it. But like, if you haven't done a happy baby in your life, that's the weirdest shit ever, right? Like, it really is. Like, you're just like, I'm gonna do what? And rock back and forth? Like, crazy, right? But then you start feeling the benefits of yoga. And all of a sudden, the main thing is you just learn to play. Like, you go back to this like childlike state where like, you're doing a crow. Like, when's the last time you've done a teddy bear stand or a crow or a headstand, or you've done any of these kinds of things? You remember that, like, having this body is amazing. Like, it's amazing, and you should always do stuff with it that like brings you back to your childhood, but also challenges it. Or then it's no longer optimized. Anyways, I could talk about the men in yoga thing forever, I think, because I'm so passionate about it. I just think, I don't know.
Well, I think it comes back to that idea too of how far yoga has come, right? Like the Westernization of yoga. And, you know, there's many people have a lot to say about that. I mean, we've done a whole blog about it. What do you call it? Yoga trolls or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was more about the cliques of yoga, I think.
It was more like the cliquiness. But, you know, the yoga started in India, and it was a practice to prepare yourself for meditation. And it was only practiced by men. And then it just evolved into this practice that now, we're not even a practice, it's evolved into a business slash, what would you say?
I don't know. It's an industry like everything else,
yeah,
but at the same time,
industry.
but at the same time, it's not, because if you just do yoga outside or in your living room or whatever, you have nothing to do with that industry. So but of course you have to buy the tools, you know, a mat and maybe some blocks and things like that. You don't even have to, like, you could put a blanket down and do it.
Well, it's funny you just mentioned blocks. I've seen a couple questions coming up about is there a good substitute for blocks? And I'm just going to throw that in there because I just
Sure,
saw
yeah,
it. Books are great.
That's great.
Yeah, just take a book and put an elastic band around it so it doesn't open. I've done that before if you need some extra support, because I understand we're all at home and may not have yoga blocks or want to spend money on a yoga block, but you can also find pretty cheap ones on Amazon too. But
Totally,
yeah.
right?
But anyway, so the whole idea of the Westernization and yoga coming into our lives in this way, I think it's been a beautiful process, and what it's given all of us has been a true blessing. Traditional ways of looking at yoga, and those people would frown upon even like what we do.
Oh yeah.
Or what most people do, like yoga workouts or fusing yoga or this and that, because some people believe that it should be done one way and only that one way. And the way we see it is that, come back to what we've been talking this whole time, which method you use to connect to yourself, whether that is a traditional style of like Ashtanga yoga, which is very, very like military based, maybe it's more like movement and flow and just feeling your energy. Like, it doesn't matter. No one's there to judge you. No one should be pointing fingers at you for choosing a path that works for you. And that's what's important, is just find the right path. Maybe for you it is traditional yoga, and that's great. Maybe for you, you don't want to stick to that, because truthfully, I've heard so many people saying, I thought yoga was boring, and then I started trying different things and I connected to it, because some people can't connect to this very like militant, like sit in this and this, like very like structured type of way. They need a little bit more freedom to move. So I think finding the path that works for you,
and then not listening to the cliques and the people that come at you, because at times, especially if you put yourself out there, and I believe that everyone has something to offer, so we all have this open door with social media to put yourself out there and share what you have to offer. And this is kind of like the Yoga Trolls video, because we take a lot of heat for it, but we've learned to kind of just ignore it and push it aside. But I think it's important, because that can steal the power away from somebody else. And if you're out there and if you're doing yoga classes or putting yoga poses online or doing anything that's just offering what you learn and what you love and what feels good to you, because it's all about what feels good to you, that you know that these people, like most things that have little factions, like there's little cliques. And there's people that are very traditional, and there's people that are very Ashtangi, and there's people that are like, I went to a yoga school and this is how I learned it, so this is how everyone do it. And they like to try to influence others by taking away their power to share what they have. And so there's these cliques, and there's lots of boards on Facebook too, where people just argue all day long about like the techniques and the history and the this and the that. And honestly, we don't even pay a minute's notice to that, because it not only brings negativity into something that should be really positive, but it takes away something that's about expression and experience, because
and
connection
and union and everything that yoga is supposed to be about.
Like, as long as you're, you know, finding that bliss and that connection and taking that moment, that's all that matters. That's really all that matters to us. So when it comes to those kinds of things, we do our own thing, you know, like, and when they come at us, we just kind of like push it aside.
We don't really have a lot of people that come at us.
On the comments and all that kind of stuff.
From time to time, people think, oh.
But I hope that inspires others who try to realize, if someone comes at you and tells you what you're doing isn't right, or the technique or this or that, there could be some great value in that, and you should listen and consider. But you should also know that you have the right to do it however you want to do it.
Yeah, and also to say everybody goes and studies with different teachers, and then that teacher has their own way of sharing their knowledge and their experience. And I mean, if you think about it, like yoga has been like the Vedic scriptures and everything, though, when it comes to like the idea and philosophy of it, it has been translated thousands and thousands of times, and people have their own little versions of translations that they like to teach. And so sometimes it's like, maybe you studied with this one teacher that believes it was this way, and then somebody else studied with a different teacher that taught it a slightly different way, and then the two of you are arguing based on someone else's translation. You know what I mean? So it's like
it's kind of like Christianity.
Yeah.
Like everyone, like there's one book or it's historic. There's a lot of translations, and then people argue to the death about it. And I just keep.
Yeah. So it's a funny thing.
Okay, so we're getting a few super chats. So I want to just stop and just say that we're gonna pick. Yeah, I know, right? A super chat is where you click the little button in the chat bar, and then you get highlighted, and it's like $1 or $2 or whatever you say, and your question gets highlighted above all the others. So I'm gonna answer the 2 super chat things, and I'm gonna say to anyone else that wants to super chat, that's totally amazing, and we'll not to give favor to people that pay, but I mean. We will. I guess that's what we will do. I don't know. Because I've seen people do this, and that's what they do. So
I guess because it highlights your comment too.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, it's like your eyes are drawn to it.
So if you're interested in really getting an answer, try the super chat out. T-Tone asked with his super chat, what's the undermat board you used called and where is it from? Which is one of the most asked questions. We have this really thick mat that you'll see in all our YouTube videos because we do yoga on places that you can't put a soft mat.
No, like rocks, especially on Vancouver Island these days. It's like a savior for classes outdoors. You guys want to know what's so funny?
So this is the secret. This is literally the secret.
We at first tried to find everywhere online, like there has to be some kind of like thick mat that folds that you can travel with. Nowhere to be found.
Because we wanted to do yoga on the beach, and the minute you put it like on soft sand and put your hand down, you just sink. So go ahead. So
we did. We went to a regular gym, like a gym store, and they have these padded mats that you can buy that kind of
it's like gym floor mats.
Like gym floor mats, but they connect.
And they come in big squares.
Mm-hmm. And so we bought 2 giant squares that connect with what are these things called?
I don't know.
Like when they fold into each other.
They just go like
this.
Like this.
Yeah. So we bought them, and then we took a yoga mat. We laid the yoga mat on it, and then we cut with a X-Acto knife around the yoga mat, and we created like a little tiny gym floor mat that folds in half.
It doesn't fold, it comes apart.
Well, it comes apart because of the little jaggedy things. And then it acts like, it's like this thick.
It's pretty thick.
It's very
you can put it on anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's gym floor.
And then you put a yoga mat on top of it. So anytime we started traveling with it, because you just don't ever know where you can find the perfect ground or location. And a lot of the times it's kind of hard, so it's not comfortable.
So we wrap it in garbage bags and we tape it up and we take it to the airport and they say, what the hell is that?
They always think, is that a painting?
Like what kind of painting? And especially coming back, they're like, did you buy a painting? Like, what if we bought a painting? What does that matter?
Like, no. But anyway, so that's what it is. And it's quite easy to do it yourself if you find any sort of gym floor mats. And it's really amazing to take with you if you ever want to do yoga outside. You have on Vancouver Island here, there's lots of beaches, but they're all rocks. So you can put this mat on a rock or rocks and you can do yoga.
And then artlessly Victoria Jane asked, would you join the Joe Rogan on his podcast as a super chat question?
Yeah, if he ever invited us.
He invited us? That'd be amazing. We actually watch Joe Rogan, because he's so easy to watch on YouTube. Like I watch it while I edit a lot sometimes, like just listen to it in the background. Yeah. It's probably one of the few podcasts that makes its way into...
Yes, like sometimes some of his people are...
Yeah, no, obviously.
It depends on who he has on his podcast.
But Dr. Rhonda Patrick's episode recently,
really
and
good.
she has like a 20-minute rant about vitamin D.
I highly suggest you guys listen to it.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick, vitamin D, just type it into the Google browser, and it's so important in this day and age in the COVID times to watch that. Or like, who else? Like, he always has, we really like the stuff that's about the optimization and like just getting more out of yourself. Like Wim Hof was really good. The vegan, what was it? The debate between the guy who made... The
guy that made...
what's that movie called? Game Changers. Yeah. And then the guy that kind of called him out.
Debunked it, and then they had like a debate on it.
It was a terrible debunking, and that was what was really crazy about that. But that was a really good episode. I don't know, yeah, Joe, and then I don't know. He's been a big part of like a lot of like introducing a lot of new ideas to us.
Let's do some other questions.
Sure, yeah.
We're just gonna scroll down because you guys have been sending a lot of amazing questions our way. Oh, that's an interesting one. Have you ever tried Kundalini yoga? Yes. We have. I've done some Kundalini meditations. Actually did quite a lot of them in my 300 yoga teacher training in India 2 years ago. And I'll just keep this short, but I'll tell you guys, I actually had to stop doing the meditations because in Kundalini yoga, you're awakening what Kundalini is. It's like this stagnant, what they call it, a snake, right? It's dormant at the base of your spine and your root chakra.
It's not a snake.
Well, they kind of picture it as a snake.
Yes.
Obviously,
It's
a
an
serpent.
energy.
It's in the pictures, it's like a serpent. And what happens? It's you're awakening this energy, and it goes up through the spine, and then it meets with Shiva, which is the energy on the top of your head. And so that connection of the Shakti energy and the Shiva is what calls like an awakening, right? And that's what they believe in Kundalini and why people practice it. The really interesting thing is my yoga teacher at that time warned us about it. They're like, look, when you awaken this Kundalini energy, it can actually be quite dangerous if you're not doing it under the right guidance with the right teacher, because you're opening a channel, an energy channel in your body that if you don't know how to control can actually be very harmful to you. And there's been experiences and stories in the past that people have done a lot of damage to their mental state through that. And so when I started doing Kundalini meditations, this awakening of this energy in the base of my spine started to get so intense. Like it would just, like I would feel it. And I didn't feel like I had the right guidance, and I knew I wasn't going to be with this teacher for very long. It was only a couple weeks like that were left of the training at that time when we started really focusing on it. And I told him, I'm like, look, I'm experiencing these intense sensations when I go into this meditative state, and my teacher at that time told me to stop. He goes, stop, take a break, and then come back to it, because unless you're like living with like a guru or someone that you're practicing every day, like it's a very, very dangerous thing. So
it can be. It can be for sure.
yeah,
and what's interesting about that is I remember 2 years before that we went to like a psychic fair in Toronto.
And I spoke to this, who was she?
She was just like a reader.
Like a shaman, psychic
She was a reader.
lady, yeah. And she warned me about it. She was like, oh, be careful with Kundalini energy, with your Kundalini practice.
Because she saw something in your aura, she said.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, that's weird. And we didn't really know a lot about Kundalini at the time.
Yeah, but you know, there's like exercises and there's yoga, Kundalini yoga classes that you can do, which are really good. I have nothing against it. I think it's a wonderful practice of yoga, but I'm just saying you have to be really careful with that energy that you're playing with and be under the right guidance and the right teacher for sure. For me, I had to step away from it, but maybe one day I'll revisit it if I have the right teacher with me. Not right now.
So Christina Lane put in a super chat. She said, can you address the best way to heal overstretched hamstrings at the sit bones, please? I think she means sit bones?
No, the hamstrings, because that's where they connect.
At the sit bones, not sit bones.
Can you address the best way to heal them?
I guess...
well, rest is definitely the best way to heal any sort of pulled muscle, if that's what you're feeling.
Yeah, it depends, I guess, if you're talking about overstretch, so it just, or overwork. She said overstretch, so I'd assume it would be that. If you want, Christina, to just put any more information about what you're dealing with in the comments there, we'll get into it even more.
Yeah, but I mean, the best way to, when you have a sort of, any sort of pulled muscle injury, the best thing you can do with it is give it time. There isn't really a remedy or a posture to fix it. Time will heal it, and rest will heal it.
And then slowly ease back into it. If it's strained. I pulled an inner thigh, actually, like the groin muscle area.
Adductor, yeah.
And that was a long journey to ever being able to do a what's it called? Wide-legged fold again, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so it's just rest and time, heat therapy, cold therapy sometimes can be really, that can do a little bit more damage, but heat therapy is really nice.
Like if you're doing yoga practice and you're trying to refrain from stretching the hamstrings, like I showed earlier, doing downward dogs with a slight knee bent, or even forward folds, and always making sure your knees are slightly bent. It will make sure that you're not overextending, and that will just keep it protected. So it doesn't mean that you have to stop doing yoga. You just have to modify the postures to make sure you're never overstretching that particular area of your body. So don't do any like seated forward folds. Maybe do a little bit more lunges, or like low lunges where you're kind of keeping the hamstrings more protected.
But then if it's that they're sore from exercise, then stretching is great.
Yeah, but I think if you mean overstretch, it's probably more of an injury, right?
Amina Adui, I put a super chat to you before, please answer. I can't scroll up for some reason, Amina. So if you want to retype your question here, I'm going to keep an eye out for it, and I'll just trust that you did put a super chat earlier, and we'll answer that for sure. But I hope that answers your question, Christy Lane. Answers it?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Sure.
I hope so. So yeah, Amina, let us know what you're asking. How do you make your wrist stronger, from Lily? Oh, hang on, there's Amina again. She goes, they answered 2 other after I put super chat. Oh no, she's just talking about how we didn't see it. No, we didn't see it. She's talking to somebody else.
Question.
Yeah, let's do another question. Let's see what we got here. Megan Cerny did a super chat, but didn't actually put a question in.
Okay.
So Megan, if you want to, I'm going to keep my eye out for Amina. Oh, hang on. Amina, it was, are you guys sober?
Sober.
Yep, look at us. Do we look like we're not sober? Is there once a year we'll have a glass of wine?
Well, yeah, I think we had it on my birthday once, along last year, not this year.
I think it's important to say that it's not because we don't agree with it necessarily.
I think it's just a personal choice.
It's just a personal choice,
Yeah.
but I also think we've had periods of our life, both of us, where we weren't sober, where we drank a lot.
This was like before we kind of got on this journey.
And it wasn't our finest time. We saw who we were, I think, and we were with each other, and we saw how we interacted and what it did to our vibration and our energy. And I think one of the best things we ever did was eliminate that from our life.
Yeah. I've also eliminated coffee, and right now I'm drinking dandelion, which is like a coffee substitute made out of herbs, and I just put some oat milk in it. And that's what I've been drinking in the mornings. And it was tough at first because I was a huge caffeine addict for a while. I needed coffee all the time. So I'm at the moment right now, I'm living a very pure life. I don't consume any substances or anything like that.
Yeah, I smoke some weed.
Yeah, Mark smokes
from time to time, but like I'm a one puff kind of guy. It's legal here in Canada, and I don't even smoke it. I usually vaporize it, and I don't. It's more just like a before bed from time to time thing, but it's not really. It's again like I've seen a lot of people in my life, like when I was younger, and I smoked a lot of weed when I was younger, and I think that it didn't do me any favors. And then you get hooked to it psychologically, and you feel like you need it, and then you can't be creative without it, and then you think the only way it can be great is if I'm doing that, and then you realize one day that that's just your brain trying to convince you that it wants more, or it's your habit loop in your basal ganglia on this loop saying that this is better than just clarity. But to us, there's nothing more important than our own clarity and our own optimization and being the best in each day, but also not restricting ourselves from experiencing other things. So we'll try stuff, but we try our best, whether it's coffee or whether it's weed or whether it's drinking, to just not make it a part of.
We haven't
tried
anything really.
Not at all.
Let's do another question that's not a super chat, so we can keep it fair.
Well, actually, there's one more from. Oh my goodness. They're coming through. My wife's dreaming of you to do a yoga class with Juliana. Please let me know you're planning to go to Banff, from Vlad, Moscow.
Would love to do like a retreat one day with you guys. I mean, that's definitely been on our dream board, to do a Boho Beautiful retreat, to do personal classes. But at the moment, with the state of the world and the self-isolation, social distancing, I don't know when that's going to happen. It's hard for us to say when we can actually host an event like this. But one day, when things kind of find some sort of way to settle down a little bit, where we can be in groups again.
But we're going to drive around if we can this summer, if it's allowed and acceptable socially But I mean, we just live in our van, and we live with Prince in our van, and just. Yeah. I don't know, but so we'll probably pass through Banff. Let us know.
Answered another question that came through. Tiana Forbes asked about just down below.
Oh, okay.
About if we would do summer retreats, and we will one day when we can. Yeah. But at the moment, unfortunately, it's.
Okay, one more super chat, then let's talk about anything else.
And then we'll do some other questions that are just.
Yeah, exactly. So no more super chats, guys. No more super chats. This is from Samantha Baumgartner. I used to cry so hard that it felt like my soul was screaming and trying to claw its way out of me. Your videos have helped me calm my soul. Any idea why my soul was so upset, and why did yoga calm it?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. It's something we talk about a lot in regards to energy, and energy is everywhere. Energy is everything. We are energy. Your experiences, your relationships, your interactions with people and the environment all creates energy. And sometimes when we go through difficult times, stressful times in our life, and we don't find a way to release that energy can manifest itself physically inside your body. A lot of the times it'll kind of go into your shoulders and your glutes. So when you're doing yoga, especially when you go into really deep hip opening postures, it is really normal, once you find that stillness, to start to begin to feel emotional and feel like you're just something from within is letting go, and you start to cry and you start to go into this very intense emotional experience. And if that happens, it's actually amazing. It's a beautiful thing to go through.
It's cleansing.
It's very cleansing. And I remember I said that a while ago to someone else. I'm like, I feel like in our society we've been so trained to believe that, oh, if we cry, it's a sign of weakness. You know, you can't cry, you gotta be strong, you can't show your emotions. And I think we gotta work our way away from that, because crying is a beautiful way to cleanse our energy out of us. And so when you have the space with yourself and you feel like energy and emotions are rising, don't suppress it. Like, let it go. Cry. Like, if you're in a class with other people, like, you know, close your eyes if you're like a pigeon. Or I have done it before. I've had moments where I've gone into pigeon and I would like have to grab some tissues after, and it's this
It's a
energy
release.
within you. It's releasing. So it's beautiful, and it's a wonderful way. And if that happens again and continues to happen, never suppress it. Embrace it. It's beautiful.
And why your soul was so upset, that's a very deep and spiritual question that could be answered from many different perspectives. And I think that this is a really great way of saying that there could have been energy in your body that's been held up. There's a lot of people that might believe that you came from another life, like in the Buddhist and the reincarnation side of things, and that you carried forward some pain or some guilt or some karma inside of you, and that as you've worked through this life, you're helping yourself ascend to the next levels on the wheel of life. I think that could be very much the case, or some concept of that. From a Buddhist perspective, but even it could just be that you've been through things that you're just holding on to. Whether it was when you were a child, whether it was another life, or whether it was like a year ago, you went through something really hard. And like we're taught, and especially men, it goes back to the men in yoga, you're taught to suppress emotion. And like Juliana said, when you suppress that emotion, it doesn't go away. If you get in a fight and you just walk away, you didn't solve anything. You didn't actually process through it. You buried it inside you, and it lives in you. And when you find a way, and yoga is a wonderful way to let that out, it comes out in many, many different forms. Yeah. I mean, for instance, like Juliana was saying, when we went through leaving our regular old lives, when we did the jump, we sold everything we owned, we moved away, and we ended up eventually just going with our backpacks to Indonesia. I went through a herniated back injury, my L5-S1, and it was the hardest thing. I talked about my ACL earlier, but my L5-S1 was the worst, hands down, experience of my life. And on top of that, it not only triggered us to leave, we were like, yo, fuck this place, we gotta get out of here. So we left Toronto, because I knew it was a toxic place for me. It might be a wonderful place for lots of people, but at that point, I knew we needed to leave. And so the purging of all this emotion in me, and all of I'd been there for 15 years, and just going through so much pain, like physical pain and emotional pain, and having to let go of a lot of my old life and a lot of toxic people in my life. It was such a thing, and I still was at this point where I think I was burying it inside. We ended up in Indonesia. We were in Ubud in Bali, and we went to the yoga barn, and I think it was our first class when we got there. You know the one I'm talking about. And it was with this wonderful yoga teacher. He was just like, to this day, the best yoga class I've ever had in my life. He had all these sounds and instruments and different tracks for every pose. It was a yin yoga class. And maybe fourth pose in, maybe 40 minutes in, I think it was a pigeon. I'm not even sure what it was, but all of a sudden I was crying. And I lifted my head from whatever I was doing, and I had no idea what the fuck was going on. And I looked over at Juliana, and she was crying too. Yeah. And at that moment, I realized that was okay. And all the things that were in, like all the alarms in my body saying, stop, stop, stop. Don't show that you're having, like all the things, you know, you're embarrassed, you feel vulnerable, all these weird feelings of like, you know, just that insecurity. I just let it go and I just put my head back down and I let it out. And when we left that class, I truly believe that I had ascended to my next level.
Yeah, you felt like a lot of weight was lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah, because to rise, you have to let go.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that when we don't find ways to release that energy, it can manifest physically in our bodies and cause us pain. So, you know, sometimes you hear people get like, they feel anxious or stressed and they start to feel like back pain or like their shoulders kind of cramp up and they're like, why is my body hurting too? But that's because of the emotional state that you're in that's actually causing your body to react.
And to bring it full circle, that's why. I know that that's why my L5S1 went. I know it was encouraged by a bad hockey check. Like I got sleut-footed, my feet got taken out for me. I landed on my tailbone. But I know that had I not had all that toxicity from where we lived and the life we lived and who we were and everything that we went through and the stress in the city and all that stuff, I know that that wouldn't have gone to the point it went and that I had to let go of it all. It was beautiful. And that's the miracle of yoga.
Yeah, that's why yin yoga is so wonderful. And we hear a lot of feedback from everybody saying, oh, I love yin yoga. I highly recommend yin yoga to everyone because it gives you that opportunity to kind of quiet the mind and connect with your body in a long period of time as you're holding the posture and really feel that energy releasing. It's very powerful.
It's very powerful.
Let's do a couple more and then I think we'll close it off because
we're an hour in.
Over an hour now. Oh, yeah,
Megan Cerny, you did another super chat, but it doesn't say, like, am I doing something wrong? Type of message retracted. Okay, Megan, if you want to.
Let's do a next question.
Megan, if you want to throw another one in there, we'll look at it for sure. Yeah, let's do another question. Do we know a release date for the app from Cassandra Land? No, but soon. I got up at like before 7 and just came to sit down.
We're exporting like all our YouTube videos, so there's over 300 videos that we're putting on the app because we want to be able to offer you guys not just the exclusive content, but also all the YouTube videos that you have, so it's all in one place. And it'll allow you to sort it properly and not have to watch any commercials.
And it's
so it's a process.
So I have to go back through every video we've ever done and then take out all the YouTube crap from it and any sponsorships and things and so it's like I get up in the morning and I sit down here and I'm like, I didn't do yoga today. I said, after we do this thing today, I have to hit the mat because I decided the best way to get the hardest thing of my day done is to wake up and do it immediately.
And then go.
What else do we have here? So, holy.
A lot of questions, guys. Amazing.
Guys, this is so cool. I just want to say how cool this is that you're here with us, that we're engaged, we're talking about one of the most passionate things in our life, and there's so much positive energy.
There's so many amazing questions. Like, I feel like I wish we could answer all of them.
Right?
I feel like we'd be here for like 4 hours.
Okay, here's a good one. What about a headstand? I saw your video about it.
Okay.
But how should I place my hands so that my headstand will be safe and I won't hurt my head? That's from Magdalena.
Okay.
And that's a really great question because that is one of the most dangerous poses because you think it's called a headstand. A headstand, like it's called a headstand, but you're not actually on your head because you'd be compressing your spine too much.
Well, there's a variation that's very advanced where you actually go into your head, but
it takes a long time to get to that point.
It takes a long time when you have to get enough strength, and that's why I've done it a couple times in India, and I actually, I've held it for a few times, and I ended up pinching some kind of nerve where I had like pain in my fingers because I pinched a nerve in my neck. But usually, like the tutorials that we do, the right hand position, what we recommend is interlacing your fingers like this, and then just, I guess I should go on the mat, hey?
Sure, yeah, let's do that. Okay. I was just sitting here reading comments, I phased out. There we go.
I'm not going to do a full headstand, but I'll just show you kind of the getting into it because that's the most important part. So what you do is I like to interlace my fingers and then place the elbows down. And then we have a tutorial on this, by the way.
But that's what she was asking. Her was what, I forget her question now. Oh, where do you place your head?
So you place your crown of your head down and then you lift up. Now see how my fingers, this is my arm positions of this, right? So most of my weight is actually in my forearms. It's not in my head. And when you start to come on up, so you're putting all of your weight, so it's like if you were doing a dolphin, so all of your weight is in your forearms. You just tuck the chin in and place the crown of your head, and then you start to walk. And then once you got that balance, then you can start to play with your feet, lifting them up.
Well, I'm going to come in there for a second too, because I just want to say that the thing that's really important about this is that what Juliana was saying is that the weight goes on here, but the strength isn't your neck. You shouldn't feel any tension in your neck. The strength comes from your upper shoulders, and that's why when you're down here like this, what's key is the exercise, the dolphin, is this exercise, and if you do this every day, 10, 20 times, something like that, you will get so much stronger in this upper shoulder area that you won't even need to put anything on your head. You won't need to put...
Well, it's just kind of there. Like you feel the touch of the crown of your head with the mat, but you're not putting your body weight on the head. And that's something that's really important to remember, especially as you're learning the headstand, because as soon as you start to put that weight, you're going to have that compression. Once you got confidence, and once you can stand in that variation with the hands like this on the forearms for a long time, then you can start to go into the next phases of headstands where it's almost like a real headstand. You guys have probably seen it, like those crazy poses where someone's actually on their head and their arms are
Juliana does that, but I think it's crazy.
I've done it a few times, but I don't do it too much because I have injured my neck before doing it.
But what's really cool about that is that your headstand component of it is, like Juliana said, it's just touching barely the mat. So really, it's a forearm stand. So when you're doing it right and you build that strength doing the dolphin exercises, eventually it makes it really easy to get to the next level, which is the forearm stand.
Yeah. Well, because also once you start to practice, we'll go over here. What I was saying is, what's important is that when you start to get really comfortable, like I was saying, in the headstand, on the forearms, then you also, because you're still keeping your head there, you can kind of play with a little bit with the weight, but making sure that you have all the support on your forearms is really important. And then over time, once you get stronger in the upper body, that's the strength that you will need to then progress to the next level. But again, I highly recommend you guys, when you start to get to that next level of headstand where you're doing it on your head, to do it with a teacher.
But yeah, don't even bother with that. It's just too much of a risk. I think it's stupid, to be honest. I do. I see it when Juliana did it and she did it for a photo. I was just like, it's just such a risk because your discs are so sensitive. It's all about your arms, to me. And if you, I just had to say it. Like, don't even go there. Work on the elbow stands, work on the headstands, work on any kinds of leg variations. But those crazy people that stick their hands out, like Juliana sometimes, I mean, you're just asking for it. You're asking for a hernia. Like, this was the guy that had the disc herniation, so I'm uberly sensitive about that. But anyways, just work on those dolphins too. That is the number one.
Just getting a strong upper body and the shoulders.
And dolphins,
so
like, as soon as I started doing dolphins, everything became a lot easier in that.
That's why, like, anyways, not to go into it, but we have a video on YouTube that talks about inversions, and we kind of break it down to do a headstand in it. So check it out, because I think that'll help you a lot.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
Is there anything, any more questions? Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot. So.
It says, Juliana, your mic doesn't work.
What? Are you out? Talk.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're out.
I'm out?
She's out. What happened?
Disconnection?
What happened? Talk, babe?
Check.
Yeah, just check the, are you on or off? Dead battery.
Oh, my battery died.
Dead. Let's get her a battery. I'm gonna just jump over here, guys, and grab her a battery.
Can people not hear me anymore?
No, they can only hear me. So I'll talk and you pretend that you're me.
Anyways, we should probably start wrapping this up too. But.
Yeah, we should. But they can kind of hear you if I come close like this. I need a way to open this up. I don't know. I can't use my teeth. I don't have anything there. Oh no, there we go.
It's a fail.
No, it's not. These things, they happen. Are you guys pissed? No, they're not. So let's just, they say they can still hear you, but definitely just through my mic. So you can talk.
Okay.
Just lean back a little so I can sneak in here.
So what we try to do is get the best audio, and then I should be back to normal in no time.
Hopefully it just links immediately. Talk for a sec, babe.
Can you guys hear me now?
She's back.
Yay! Yay! It's back.
Okay. So, thank you guys for giving us the heads up.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that was like that. That's crazy.
Yay.
Now they can help for review. I saw another super chat that didn't have a comment with it.
Let's do one more question and then I think we should wrap it up.
Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about?
There's a question about teacher trainings that come a lot in our email account.
We answer that almost every live stream too.
Yeah,
I think,
about teacher training. Maybe let's answer it. So a lot of you guys ask us about like what's the best teacher training if you want to take your practice to the next level and become a yoga teacher yourself. The one thing that we always love to tell anybody is that research the teacher itself that's leading the class. That is the most important aspect of it, because that is the teacher that's going to guide you through a month of self-exploration, understanding yoga philosophy. Like there's so many components to a yoga teacher training. And it's going to be really like a lot of information for you to go through. And usually most teacher trainings are about a month long, so they really jam-pack so much into it. So having the right teacher as a guide is one of the most key
It's all that matters. It's actually all that matters. Because they like to sell it to you about the experience of where you're going to be and all kinds of other flashy ideas.
Sure.
And those are all nice.
Yeah,
and we actually would 100 times over one say travel to someplace, but it's not about the travel, it's about the removal from your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And then make sure that you know who's your teacher. And make sure that what they tell you is honest online, because there's a lot of places that you can sign up for that will change the construct of what you signed up for when you arrive. The school I went to was very much like that. Supposed to have 18 students, I think, on the website it said, or 20 students, and I think we had like a class of 42, which was just crazy. And there was a lot of weird little things like that.
I did my first teacher training, my 200 hours in Costa Rica back in 2003, I think it was. And that was an amazing experience. It was in Montezuma at a retreat center called Anamaya. And I highly recommend you guys check it out if you're looking for a really nice experience, because it was just an incredible journey for me to dive into. But I also had an amazing teacher. I don't know if she teaches courses anymore, but just check out Anamaya. My second teacher training, the 300 hours. So Mark and I went to India 2 years ago. I continued my training and marked it as 200-hour training. So we were in different schools. But surprisingly enough, both of our schools that we signed up for in India didn't really
deliver
what they promised. In my school, I signed when I got there, they actually completely changed the teachers. Like the two teachers that we were supposed to train with were like gone somewhere else, and they just brought in these random people in, and it was a little bit frustrating. I mean, I still took a lot from it. It was a really nice experience. And the head teacher that I trained with, who did the more philosophical meditation aspect, he's like a psychologist in India. He was amazing. Dr. Keshava was an incredible human being. But, you know, the teachers that were teaching the asana component were a little bit underwhelming and frustrating at times, because, again, you're just like, I signed up for one thing and I'm completely given something else, and you feel a little bit ripped off.
So I would just, to close it, I would suggest that if there's a way to find somebody who's gone to the school you're looking at and taught with the teacher that you're looking at, or learned from the teacher that you're getting taught from, and just be super careful. It's like we said at the start of this, it's turned into a massive industry, and because so much of it's online, there's a lot of gray area that people can get away with kind of selling you something that you're not really thinking that you're getting.
Do your research, but make sure the teacher that you want to study with is someone that you really connect with.
Yeah.
That'd be our number one.
Iris Shine said, you guys are amazing. Thank you for your stories and openness. We appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Iris.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and listening to our stories. Honestly, like, this is such a...
It's a fun thing.
Yeah.
We've been going for a while now, too.
Yeah, we have been going for a while, so maybe we should start wrapping it up. I'll just look quickly for a couple other things to just, I don't know.
Pick through?
To pick through, I guess, and then we'll be out of here, right?
Yeah.
There's so much. Would you consider an opportunity to come to Ukraine after quarantine? Yes.
Of course.
Got to see her family again.
I wonder sometimes, I'm like, I wonder when I'll get to see my family.
Right?
I'm sure a lot of people out there are wondering the same thing, when you'll get to see your loved ones and your friends who are not in the same town as you or country as you. But I have my hopes up, guys. I think we're going to get through this. I really believe that there's going to be some way our life is going to find its new path. So hopefully it'll be a new normal that we create for ourselves that is more in touch with Mother Earth. And
well, that's the best thing about this, is that this is giving everyone an opportunity. This whole COVID situation worldwide, it gives us all an opportunity to reassess our values, our life, where we're putting our time, how we're behaving in our relationship to our loved ones. And to me, that's the opportunity of a lifetime. Now, not everyone's going to take it. There's a lot of people who are very emotional and want to go right back to how things were and go back into their old habit and their old life. But I would encourage anyone who's going through this, which is everyone, to just take that moment and recognize, have I assessed where I was before, where I am now, and where I'd like to be as this thing finds a new normal? Because no matter what, it's going to find a new normal. But it's up to each of us individually to decide what we want that new normal for ourselves to be. And I think for myself, I think I've become a lot more focused. I think we've been able to be more productive with our time in the day. We're much closer to our family. We're much closer to each other. We spend time together doing things throughout the day more often than we did before to create memories and experiences. My dad is living with us now, which has been a wonderful blessing. Never would have this have ever happened in my life, so I have something thankful to say about what has happened, because we wanted to get him out of where he was to somewhere here with us where it was more safe for him. And so, I don't know, not to go on my COVID rant, but I think it's just really important that we all take that breath and that minute and that beat and just say, well, what's changed for me and what can I change? Because there is always something we can change in our life at every moment. But this is a perfect opportunity because we're all a little more still than we usually are.
Amazing. Well, I think that probably is a nice way to wrap things up.
Yeah, it might be. Wait.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys, thank you so much for your love. Really appreciate it. It's a beautiful thing to see this community together. It really lifts us up. You know, we keep our heads down and we're trying to create and work and do as much as we can, but then just reading your comments and your experiences and your own journeys is really beautiful. So we really appreciate it. It's pretty amazing.
One last question I've seen multiple times. Multiple times. This one's from Angie Ingrokoga. It just went by quick. Does doing yoga make you Buddhist or go against any other religions? Well, there's no actual connection between Buddhism and yoga. It's actually Hinduism where it originated.
Yeah.
But
it's not a religious practice. Yoga is...
It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
It's a personal practice.
There's some people that see it as a religion, and I think it's just miscommunication and misinformation. Information.
But to us, I mean, it could be everything for anyone. So maybe for some people, but for us, it is a personal expression and experience and relationship with yourself that leads to a relationship with the world.
With your own energy, right? There's a beautiful idea that I really connected with, this idea of Brahman and Atman, and that's something that they speak about in Hinduism. And Brahman is the idea of universal all, right? And Atman is just the little tiny pieces of that Brahman. So a beautiful way to create it as a visualization, imagine the ocean being the Brahman, and a wave of the ocean being the Atman. Well, we are the waves of an ocean. And when we go in and connect with the energy within us, we are connecting with that Brahman energy, the all, the universal consciousness. And it helps us to realize that we may have our differences, we may feel like we are separate from one another, depending on your religion, your color, your whatever economical state, whatever it is, you feel like you're different, but in the end, we all come back to the same ocean, to the Brahman. That's where we all return. And so for us, when we practice yoga, it gives us the opportunity to return to that internal energy, which allows us to realize that all of us are one. We are one. Like namaste, right? The translation of namaste is, my soul recognizes your soul. I honor everything that is within you because it is also within me. And it's that beautiful connection that yoga helps us realize, that no matter what we go through in our life, we all return to the one place.
It's amazing. Shout outs to Sparkling Faye, who's here with us. She's a patron and a longtime supporter of us.
And always sends us such kind messages. Thank you so much.
We see you here. Guys, join us on Patreon. We have a class on Saturday. I think it'll be an hour.
Yeah, we haven't really decided yet.
I don't know. We'll make
But
it
we're
up.
going to do something a little bit more gentle. The last 2 classes on Patreon live streams were, nice flows, but quite challenging. So this one's going to be a little bit more peaceful.
So yeah, so pay what you can. We're over on Patreon. We'll be posting another video on YouTube this week. Let us know how you like this, if you made it this far.
Yeah.
Because we can do this often. We were thinking about doing it every Thursday.
And we were thinking to pick different topics. So today, as you can see, was yoga. We were thinking maybe next week we would do completely different. I mean, anything.
So let us know
goes.
what other topics.
Yeah.
Let you know. We kind of veered away when we talked about, answered some of your questions, like Ukraine and drugs and stuff like that. But like, maybe we'll try harder next time to keep it all into one thing. Yeah. But anyways, this was the Boho Frequency.
Thank you so much for being here with us and for your energy and for connecting and for asking questions, for sharing your love with us. We appreciate it, and we hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And we'll see you next week, and we'll see you on the mat.
Love and light to all you guys.
Bye, guys.
Well, it's still rolling, guys. We're going to sit here and maybe chat on the chat for a bit, but I'm going to click us off.
Are we still rolling?